to another episode of Confessions of a 9 to 5 CEO, where faith meets failure, purpose meets pain, and we go behind the scenes to look at the real cost of building a legacy while surviving our 9 to 5 job. My name is Tanisha, and this is my unfiltered story of my journey from burnout to the soft life that God has promised me and you. If this is your first time joining us on the channel, thank you so much for joining us today. Here on this channel, we provide a safe space for women like you who, like I said, holding down a 9 to 5 job and a family and trying to build a legacy on the side. Welcome to the channel today. Please do like, share, and subscribe these videos so that we can reach more women building legacies on the side while holding down their 9 to 5. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So on our last episode, we did talk about my rise from my first business failure into my new business venture, which is my diner that I started. We did look at the lessons that we learned from previous episodes and how we moved forward with more clarity into our new place of business. We did also mention that this business was quite the success. It was profitable. We hired a proper chef. We made sure that we vetted the resume. We made sure that we checked out all the references. He came very highly recommended. He was a nice, polite person. Not only did we hire him, but we provided employment for him to support his family also. We also hired 3 members of our own family that we could count on in the early stages of our business to help us to grow, people who we could hold accountable, and people who wanted to see us win. I also talked about how we got a great opportunity where we were able to split the rental costs for a shop with a lady who had her own business, who was going through some struggles and needed someone to share the overheads with her. We thought that was an awesome opportunity, but we didn't do enough digging to make sure that we were being provided with a fair deal. As it turns out, we did agree to 50-50 down the middle. And I forgot to mention in my last episode that yes, we did have a contract. It was a written contract where we signed that we would pay 50-50 down the middle rental and utilities for that unit. We did sign the contract, so we're bounded by that contract. But the one thing we did not ask for is to see the original lease that the tenant that we subleased for had originally signed. What that would have done was ensure that we were indeed offered a fair deal and that it was 50-50 down the middle. If you're following this channel and you watched our last episode, you realize that we demanded to see the lease after speaking to other tenants around and realizing that we were almost paying the entire amount for the original lease that the tenant had gotten from the landlord himself. Now, this was not a rumor. This was not hearsay. We actually got a hold of the landlord for the building and for that particular shop. He was aware that we were there. He was aware that we had a sublease. So all those areas, we ticked off all those boxes. But what we did not see originally was the lease contract. When the landlord gave us audience and we went to meet with him and sit with him, we explained to him that the effort on our part was very great. And that after we did some evaluation, we realized that if we were paying the amount that she asked us for rent, that the math was not adding up, because if she was paying half of what we were paying, it means that we would be paying over 150% for the unit that we were renting. So it didn't make sense to us. So we decided to go to the landlord and he kind of cleared things up for us. So not only were we paying 50, not 60, not 70%, but yes, guys, we were being robbed up to our necks. We were paying 80% of the total cost of the rent for the shop that we had subleased. Hallelujah. Guys, we decided to do something about it. We decided to confront the tenant that we rented the shop from, and that is when everything went up in flames. Burn, baby, burn. Everything went up in flames one more time. I am going to ask you to subscribe. When we went into our back end this week, we noticed that 80% of you guys who watch these series, who enjoy these confessions, are not subscribed to this channel. Of course, you all know the algorithm story, and you also know that the biggest support that you can give a creator is to like, share, and support their content. What that does is it pushes the content for those people who are searching for information like this that can help them. So please don't just come on here and enjoy the content for yourself. Please, please, please like, share, and subscribe this video. Tune into more of the previous confessions. I'm going to link the last episode here for you so you can go ahead and watch that, so that we can continue with the story for those of you who have been following us. All right. So last week we left off where we went to our place of business only to realize that the locks were changed. But we decided to confront the tenant that we subleased the unit from. And this was after we had spent almost a good solid year in that business. Although we were paying a significant amount into the rent, we were making a good profit. We were actually making a good living from that diner. And like I said, that diner came with a lot of sentimental attachment and values, because I named that diner after my first child, which was my son. We called it TJ's Diner, right? So it was a love project and it was a passion project. And we made sure that our foundation was built strongly on faith, and that we consulted God for direction with this business before we started, which we did it. So we confronted the landlord, back to the story, and she flat out, we confronted the tenant, that subleased us the unit, and we asked her if we could see the original lease. And of course, she flat out refused. Of course, guys, we confronted the tenant that we subleased the unit from, told her that we wanted to see the original lease contract that she had signed for the entire unit, and baby, she flat out denied us. And that is when we realized that she was indeed not being straightforward with us. We didn't want to keep beating around the bushes anymore, because we had substantial amount of information. We had actually gotten a copy of that contract from the landlord himself, and so we took that out and we showed it to her, and we explained to her that we were very disappointed in what she had done. We let her know flat out that we tried to support her as much as she was giving us the opportunity to have our restaurant in this plaza, in this location. Marquee, it was a very thriving spot, and we were grateful. But we were also very hurt that she used the opportunity to leech off of us. She used that opportunity to steal from us. So even though we were making a significant profit, and that we were actually making a living running this business, it got complicated. So when we started this second business, we got a business loan because we needed commercial equipment. This was a dine-in restaurant where people came to sit in, so we had to make sure that the facility was clean, the facility was equipped with furniture, and that the facility was accommodating. And so we did invest a lot into it, And we got goods on consignment so that we could run our restaurant properly. So all the vendors had to be paid. So make note of this, guys. If you have a physical storefront, you will need to have your accounts system set up properly, because your vendors will need to be paid. Your staff will need to be paid, which is foremost and important. We made sure that every member of staff that worked with us was able to take home a salary at the end of the week. And we still had to pay the rent, we still had to pay our bank loan, and we still had to incorporate a lot of overhead expenses. So we were making a profit, but we weren't taking home as much as we would have liked to, because all of the profit, all of the money was going back into those overhead expenses. Now, when we sat down with our accountant and looked back at ways that we could cut back, that is when we started investigating, and all of this came to light. We decided not to operate out of fear. And so we told the landlord that we needed a fair deal and that we wanted her to revisit the contract and do what is right. And until she did that, we are going to withhold paying any more rent into the building. It was safe to say that she had stole thousands of dollars from us. But to her, she had an agreement and she had it on paper. After a lot of lamenting and talking to God and like, God, what is happening here? You know, we could have agreed to continue while we found another business, but the thought of having to go back and establish another business and start over was just it was too much for us. We had another child, we had a girl child now, so we had 2 children, and it was just too much to bear. So we stood our ground. We told her that we wouldn't be paying anything else into, because by our calculations, they owed us about 4 months of excess payment that we made to her in totality, right? So we told her that for the next 3 months that we would not be paying until she gave us the money back. When we sought legal advice, the contract that she had was more binding. Even though she was wrong and she did the wrong thing, she ended up walking away with the right because she had something on paper that we agreed to. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's another lesson there. Make sure that you are taking notes so that you don't also make these same mistakes in your business. We decided not to operate out of fear, because that's not the spirit that God gives us. God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of love and of a sound mind. And you cannot start a foundation that is built on straw and expect it to stand. And you cannot trust God for your business and give him some of the things. In essence, what you see as disruption sometimes can be God's divine intervention. All the things that we have gone through in our previous years when we just started business was just elevating me as a person to serve you. Now I can boldly stand and serve you and mentor you and take you through your journey seamlessly. So when the going gets tough and the tough gets going, trust it to God, because he said that he will perfect everything concerning you if he will guide you. People love to say if he provided the vision, he will make the provision, and we have lived through that and we have seen the hand of God, and we know that that is true. Things got really, really sour. Our chef had a spare key, and so did we, but things were flowing nicely. He knew how to go in and start up doing business on his own every day. One morning, my husband and I was at home preparing to go to the shop, and when his call came through, he said, Tanisha, the locks on the door have been changed. I cannot get into the shop. Now, we knew something was coming, but we didn't know that that's what was coming. We actually thought that because we were also supporting the landlord, that the tenant, that she would do the right thing. She didn't. She locked the doors on us. and confiscated all of our belongings, our dreams, our investment. She took away jobs, and she ended it all for us. We took a decision that this is not someone that we want to sow our hard-earned seed into. We decided that we were going to cut our losses and move on from there. We learned that we could make money outside of a physical storefront. We had success and we had failure, but in the end, again, we chose peace over profit. If you have stayed with us today to watch this video and you enjoyed the video, please like, share the video, and subscribe to this channel. Our next episode, oh my God, we're gonna go cook. We're gonna go cook to bring you another interesting episode on the 9 to 5 CEO Confessions. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And as usual, walk good.